What makes the active sourcing extension so special is that we had so many learnings. So of course we have the regular website that all our customers are super familiar with. We also released the mobile version for Personio, and this is also one of our brand new releases to have a Chrome extension for Personio available in the Google Web Store.
To be honest, active sourcing can be quite exhausting at times and take up a lot of time during your week. So we would love to kind of reduce the effort from our side, as it's just, we are also busy with interviewing, speaking to candidates, aligning with hiring teams. So there are so many other tasks that need to be done in order to place us hire at the end of the day. That's why active sourcing is something that is kind of taking too much time at the moment.
And since many recruiters are actually investing a lot of time in active sourcing, we have a huge opportunity of making this process more efficient. And that's exactly the problem that we wanted to solve.
During the Wikathon, we created together with the backenders, frontenders, and recruiters the active sourcing extension. And this was a 1.0 version of the extension, so we were not worried about design or even code quality. I hope people don't see the code we wrote that week. But in the end, the most exciting thing is that it was working, and then the recruiters were already using that even before the end of the week. And then in the end of the week, we released a Notion page with a step-by-step guide that could be used by other recruiters from the company to install the extension on their Google Chrome. And I remember that there were already people outside the team using the extension during the Wikathon week, and after the Wikathon week, we had more and more recruiters using it internally in the company. So it was really nice to see that we could develop something really fast, and it was simple, for sure, in the end, but it was fast and people could start using it during the Wikathon. So it was really cool to see how fast we could generate some value to the recruiters.
The creative process started when we basically got the decision that we want to build this extension. And usually me as a product designer comes in when we have that decision. So we now want to identify how do we actually build this. In terms of how do we build this so that the user is able to interact with this tool in the best possible way, essentially. What we usually do is we start off trying to understand what is the user need, like, how do we address that to find the perfect solution, so that we don't just build this product because other competitors are doing or customers are asking for this. We really want to understand how we need to build this so that we can address this need in a really point way. And the first thing that we did was we reached out to stakeholders within the company. We also talked to recruiters at Personio to get a first understanding on how this tool actually should work. And not even this, but also understand how recruiters actually do active sourcing in general. So trying to identify what are the current pain points in the way that they do it currently, so that we understand how we need to address those pain points to come up with a solution which works best for them. And after we had those interviews, those initial interviews at the beginning, we created a first draft, first designs. So we came up with a very high-level prototype, just so that we show how the product will work in general. And with this first prototype that we created initially, we then reached out to Personio customers. So the real customers that then eventually will use the product. I think we talked to 5 people in total. And this way we were able to validate whether our design decisions was well done, or if there are any improvements that we need to do, things that we haven't thought about initially. And that was really interesting because there were a few points where we got feedback on. We actually came up with additional features, such as adding tags and being able to add a comment, so that this is also part of this application, which will then be created using this tool.
Once the designers they finish with the prototype, it's time to the engineers start working on what we call the delivery of the feature. So once we reach this stage, Usually the designer, the product manager, and the engineers, they sit all together and they examine the design, checking how feasible it is and checking what are the engineering costs to implement that design. After that, we create the tasks in the sprint or in the backlog that will represent everything we have to do in order to reach the design that was proposed by the designer. And then we start working on the design, or in the development in the end. So basically, it depends on how complex the design is. We may do this in one sprint that may represent 2 weeks or 1 week, depending on the team, or we may do this in several different sprints that may represent 1 or 2 or 3 months of development. It will depend on the feature that was designed by the designer.
I think the part that I enjoyed most was seeing how nice we can all work together, and all the collaboration and all the effort from the other teams to be there for us, to help us, to support us. It was really nice to see all this support. So we had a lot of ideas at first, and some of them we had to postpone maybe for the future as further development. But we had to keep it pretty simple for the first version, just to make it work, make sure people can use it, and I think it's gonna be great to also demonstrate that this can be a great product, and it's gonna be really helpful, and also in the future it's worth to make changes and add new features.
Yeah, I think the expectation is once the development is ready, everything is done and nothing is left to be done, but it's not really true, because a big chunk of work is actually communicating the release to our customers and making sure that customers know about this release, that they know how to use the new functionality, use the new feature. And the work that I'm doing is coordinating all the internal teams so that customers are aware of what the feature is actually like and what it involves, how to work with it. This involves working with our user education team, which are content writers who are writing the Help Center article explaining how to use the functionality, for example, active sourcing in this case. We also switch on the in-app notification in the app directly, so that once the feature is released, all customers know that the feature is now available and know how to work with it. So we switch on a guide, and I'm also helping setting up this guide, communicating which information needs to be there, how it should look like, where is the best place to put it. And this is, for example, what channel managers are responsible for, placing it in the right place. And also we communicate, for example, with community who would do a release note and maybe mention the release in some kind of event that is happening with our customers, so that they know that, for example, Active Sourcing plugin is now available and they can use it in their LinkedIn accounts. And also, for example, we communicate with marketing team so that in our next newsletter, the feature is also there, and all our customers get this information with the newsletter.
I love the extension. It actually really reduces in comparison to uploading the talent manually and just using the plugin. It's way more efficient, it's faster. I've learned it's 3 times faster. And yeah, it's a really good experience so far.